So good morning and happy Monday, everyone. It's good to be with you all for our monthly Goleta Regional Action Plan meeting to discuss the impact of homelessness in Goleta. Um, my name is Landon Rank. I'm the Associate Director with SBACT, and I'm joined by my colleague Kai Tilley. And then we also have with us Chuck Flax. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I think I know almost everybody. I'm the homeless services coordinator for the city of Goleta.
Thanks, Chuck. And we're joined by Mayor Perotti as well, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Mayor Perotti, City of Goleta.
We're here today with multiple other city staff, as well as service providers, community members, law enforcement, and a couple of just community presenters to talk about issues related to homelessness. And we do have a full agenda today, so we're going to just jump right in with a couple general announcements to start. I hit the wrong button there. Let me share my screen. So just to note that this rep meets every week actually, but these kind of more community-oriented meetings are once a month. So the next community concerns meeting will be on May 27th at noon. So mark your calendars for that, and we'll send out another email reminder. And then the Act on Homelessness Collaborative, which is a South County-wide initiative that Goleta is participating in along with Santa Barbara and the city of Carpinteria. The next open all-call meeting will be on Monday, June 3rd at noon. And that will be in person, I believe, at Trinity Episcopal Church, but I will follow up to confirm that. So we invite you to join that just to learn more about what's going on with regards to homelessness throughout South County.
It's at noon on my birthday, so are you serving lunch? Just curious.
Well, we could serve a cake, maybe. Sounds like we need to.
You don't have to serve a cake, but okay, so people should BYO.
It also depends how big of a birthday it is. If this is like one that ends in a
No,
0, then
no.
So good news from just this last week is the ribbon cutting from the La Posada Transitional Housing Project. And I don't believe I see anyone from the county on the call right now. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know, Chuck, do you want to share a little bit about this?
Yeah, for people who don't know, this is a exciting transitional housing project, although quite a few folks who were there, I think thought they were opening up a permanent project for homelessness, and that's a bit unfortunate. But the really good news is that this is a transitional, it's a what they call a temporary interim housing program, because they are going to be doing a lot of services. They're going to be each person gets his or her own room with a door that locks. And it really gives people a sense of home in a way that most shelters don't. The property was created by Dignity Moves on county land near the what used to be the juvenile hall, and is slated for future development. So this project will be there for, I think, 3 years roughly, maybe a little bit longer, hopefully. And then Good Samaritan is the operator and will be working with the county homeless services system, what we call our coordinated entry system, to place people into the units. The focus is going to be on people who are living in encampments along the transit corridor, starting with people very close to the project. There counted about 70 or 80 people right near the project, but it's going to extend all the way into Goleta proper. So for example, on my list of potential people going in, I have about 25 or so people that are likely to get placed there, which means people coming right out of our encampments and moving into this housing, temporary housing situation. And then the goal is for all of them to move them into permanent housing as it develops. And the success of this project in the downtown area has been very high. I've heard numbers as high as 60 or 70% of people moving into permanent housing. That's compared to about 10%, 10 to 20% in a shelter, typical shelter. So this is really a wonderful innovation. They just completed something similar in Santa Maria. And I think everybody who was there and all of us should be excited about the future with this.
And so I don't know if anyone has confirmation, but I believe the opening date was slated to be today, that people were moving in, but
That's
I'm
what
not
I
sure if
heard too.
that's
Yeah.
been adjusted.
Yeah.
So really good news. That's 80 people that are going to be able to either move off the streets or out of our shelter beds and into a more transitional housing, which is really great.
Just to be clear, so people know and expectations are clear, 40 people will be directly from the encampments. 40 people will be behavioral wellness clients, many of whom are the same people. So it's all going to work out really well. And actually, Eugene, who's on this call, is going to be overseeing that process. I don't know if Eugene, you want to say anything, but not to put you on the spot. But I mean, it's an exciting partnership between a lot of different agencies, and gives us a really phenomenal alternative.
Yeah, so actually Eric Rowan from the homeless outreach team, he'll be overseeing the referrals that are coming in, him along with Evelyn Zarowski. And I'll be providing support, our team, Heart team will be providing support services with the transition to the permanent supportive housing piece.
Well, we're thrilled and thrilled that there is this behavioral health component. So I'm sure you'll all hear more about this in the weeks to come. The other major update is with regard to the Buena Tierra permanent housing site. So the former Super 8 motel actually is permanent housing for people who are experiencing homelessness. At that site, a third of those units have been filled, about 20, and then the other 40 should be filled in the next month. So we have with us Angie Evans from the Buena Tierra site. I don't know, Angie, if you just want to share an update for all the community members here.
We will be leasing up mid-May, what I'm told of right now. We have a parking lot issue, a lot of construction going on, asphalt, rain doesn't really help. So that's where we're at. But right now, the first 20 that are here are doing well. We're adjusting and everybody's settling in and we're doing all right.
That's great. Thanks, Angie, and thanks for being here. Any questions about either Buena Tierra or La Posada from anyone in the community? Yeah, go ahead, Mayor Brody.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's a need for anything at Buena Tierra. I mean, is there anything individuals can do to help, or are things covered? I feel kind of a little bit removed from the whole situation, and just wondering if there's anything that we can do to help.
Right now, it's an active construction zone. So, but as soon as the construction is done and out of here, we are looking into getting some NAA meetings going on in the community room. We're looking to do things, maybe get a church to come in and serve dinner maybe once a week. We have a lot of ideas, but right now with the construction, it's really just not, it's difficult.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Randy, did you have a question?
That's a very incidental one. I'm just wondering, when people go to La Posada, do they just enter up that winding road from Hollister?
So yeah, that's one of the drawbacks of the site, is the difficulty with access. So the I'm sorry. Good Samaritan. Wow. Good Samaritan will be providing van service on an ongoing basis up until I think as late as 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So they're really going to be shuttling people back and forth because it's a difficult hill, and it's not the safest pedestrian route. So that's definitely a drawback of the site, but they're countering that with transportation.
Yeah. I was just wondering because that site up there on the ridge used to be very popular, and used to just walk up from over by that near the saloon or bar there, and I was just wondering if you're going to put steps in or something like that, but probably not.
I don't think there's going to be any new development. You might check it out. There has been some development of that site, so I'm not sure. Yeah.
All right. It's great though.
And Mayor Purdy, to answer your question, I know that the Housing Authority is planning on doing a ribbon cutting. I know that there is a need for room decoration of the future new rooms. And I've been trying to get you in touch with, I believe his name is Evan, who's working with Angie. We'll continue to reach out on that and see if we can get more instructions for people to volunteer. Good Sam might be another alternative too. And I'll reach out to Alexis at Good Sam and see if we can get more information about that.
Good, because I've heard from a few of our residents and a few others that, what can we do to help?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's nice. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So good news there. And then I wanted to turn it over to Chuck to just give a general report from the city of Goleta.
Oh, can you let me share my screen?
Yes, you're a co-host now.
Very good. Okay, can people see this?
Oops.
What I'm going to do, this is now something I'm implementing into my work plan for every month that we do these community meetings. I'd like to do a presentation just on where Goleta is in terms of our own data. And this information, you'll hear a lot about data in around homelessness, and the numbers that are quoted most frequently are from something that maybe many of you participated in called the point in time count, which is a count of 1 day count of all homeless people based on volunteers going out into the community, based on providers giving information that they have, and then it's all compiled by the county. And that's required information by the federal government and by the state. It's an important snapshot of what homelessness looks like in our community. But it's not the best information, particularly when you want to look at a particular jurisdiction like Goleta, to get a sense of who's where and what's going on. So part of my job is to track everyone in Goleta who's homeless. And I do that through 2 primary methods, 3 really. One is I download all the information from the homelessness management information system. And then I cross-check that with all of our outreach workers, with Good Samaritan, with CityNet, with Committee for Social Justice, with Behavioral Wellness. And I run my people by them to see who's where and what their needs are. And so, and what I'm able to do is kind of give an ongoing update as to where people are and what's going on. So the where are people living picture over here is based on pretty contemporary data. And what you see is a little bit different than what you might read about from the point in time count. We have 29 people currently in shelter. Just to let you know, the point in time count says we don't have any people in shelter, and that's not accurate. We have 22 people living in vehicles that have been identified as homeless, and we have 99 people living in encampments. The breakdown of those 150 people that are some important subgroups that we track for a whole variety of reasons, including special funding for housing, are seniors. And 31 of the 150, 21% are seniors, which means they're actually over 57. TAY is people transitional age youth. And just an example, there are 15 units set aside at Buena Tierra for homeless transition age youth people. 4 of the people that we've identified that are out homeless still in Goleta are transition age youth. And then finally, 4 are veterans. And this always makes me sad because veterans, frankly, there's no veteran in our country that should be homeless for moral reasons and personal value reasons. But even given that, the federal government, the state government have made veterans the #1 priority, and there's literally billions and billions of dollars to house veterans. So we really want to make sure that the veterans know of all the different benefits and housing opportunities that they have at their disposal. So I know that they become quickly top priorities. So the trick is getting them to work with us and trust us and make that all happen. What's new in our community is as of January and February and March, these are the newly identified people that I'm hearing about. And then in terms of housing, we have the 20 in February are Buena Tierra people who've been admitted into the project. They're not all living there yet. But so 24 in February, that's why that number is so high. We seem to average about 5 people a month, though, being housed. And if you look down here over time, one of the great things about our efforts in Goleta has been that we've been able to, as we get to find out who people who are homeless, we've been able to find housing for quite a few people that kind of match that number. This doesn't mean that all 41 or all 55 people who are here ended up housed in the same year. But what it means is that we're really keeping a good ratio of newly homeless people to house people. And the technical term for that, if you can get people housed as quickly as they become homeless, is functional zero. And so my goal is really to, continue this positive trend. And I think given all the new housing that's being built, we're seeing 60 units with Buena Tierra. We're going to see 100 units with Heritage Ridge in a few years here, hopefully sooner rather than later. There's going to be housing built on Patterson and the freeway, permanent supportive housing. There's going to be new permanent supportive housing built on Hollister. Both of those are housing authority projects. So we're looking at least for the next 3 to 5 years at some pretty optimistic numbers. And I will be sharing this on a monthly basis so you get a sense of our progress as we go along. Are there any questions about this? I can't see hands, Landon, so.
No hands right now.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Chuck. It'll be great to see that over time. And then one other presentation we have today, we've talked about for a little while. So we know that the housing crisis at UCSB has had ramifications for our entire South County region, including especially in Goleta. And so we invited here today a few members from the UCSB Blum Center who put together the People's Guide to the Housing Crisis at UCSB, including a former SB Act intern, Riley Wilson, is with us. So I want to introduce them and then let them take it away from here.
Thank you, Landon. We're really excited to be here. I do have a presentation if I can. Oh, perfect. Share my screen. Give me 1 second. Oh, goodness. Okay, here we go. Let me know if this looks okay and everyone can see it.
Yeah, can see it.
Cool. Keisha, if you wanted to get us started, I think for it. Yeah. Oh, Keisha, I think you're muted.
For letting me know. So hello everyone. Thank you for inviting us to join this meeting today. We're looking forward to sharing our presentation with you. My name is Keisha Arnold. I'm the assistant director here at the Blum Center. I work with Riley Wilson, who is one of our BC team leaders, and also Franny Fleming, who will also be contributing to the presentation. So I'm going to be going through some slides. I'm going to first start off with an introduction and kind of introduce you to our team. I will add that one of the challenges, and this touches on, I think, Landon's earlier comment about data, is that we know that there are students who are not who are unhoused, likely living in vehicles, but finding data on this was a real challenge for us. So next slide, please, Riley. Okay, so this is our student team that contributed to this project. This was a year in the making. And so we've had a range of students as they come and they graduate, that have made this work possible that we're about to share with you. And this is also available on the website UCSB Guide to Housing, Guide to UCSBHousing.org. That's guide to UCSBHousing.org. We first put together a PDF document of our research, and then we translated it and then updated it as a website that was interactive that you guys can go on. And let me just actually drop the link in the chat in case you want to access it during the presentation. But this is something that we're regularly updating. What we found is that when we were looking around at like some of the big social issues here at UCSB, is housing is number one. We have what we consider to be a housing crisis. Housing is unaffordable, it's scarce, and it's a topic that as much as it affects everyone, it's not well understood. A lot of the information is quite fragmented. And so we wanted to put together like a centralized hub where people could go to understand all the key issues. as well as change and challenge the narrative. We've encountered so many people who felt that the status quo is what it is, that housing has always been expensive and there really isn't much that you can do about it. And what we're arguing is that that's not true. We can ask for more accessible and affordable housing, and that we need to better address and acknowledge what has happened that has prevented our university from providing more housing, in order to make sure that that housing is constructed in a timely manner with input from our campus community. So one of our key arguments that guides this project and this presentation is that the private contributions and participation have had an outsized influence on the public resources that the university draws on to meet the housing needs of UCSB students, staff, and faculty. We recognize that UCSB has not received adequate financial support from the state of California in recent decades, and that this poses significant challenges for the university to meet its housing requirements. However, this budget squeeze has also been used to open the floodgates to arrangements that prioritize private profit over public need. And so as we go through this people's guide, we're going to introduce, we have like a handful of sections, and we're going to present on each of those sections in brief, but we encourage you to access the full website for its entirety. So I'm going to next turn it over to Franny Fleming, who's going to take us to the current state of our housing crisis.
Hi, everyone. I'm Franny, and I'm just going to talk about how our website illustrates the current state of the crisis and just some important things to take note of. So as I'm sure all of you are aware of, the cost of housing is extremely high, and especially in Isla Vista, which is zoned for high density housing. There's a lack of city oversight and regulations, and students are forced to pay extremely high prices because they simply cannot live anywhere else. And then as for the long-range development plan, this has not been met by UCSB. The housing that has been promised to be built has been repeatedly not built, and UCSB has underserved students and not followed through with their promises. So this has led to an escalating and unchecked housing crisis. And over here we have some data just showing how dense Isla Vista is and how significant this problem is. So Isla Vista has 12,492 people per square mile. So if you haven't been inside some of the houses in Isla Vista, they are jam-packed with students living in four to five people in rooms that are meant for 1 or 2 people, bunk beds, just very crammed living space, and they still pay an average of $3,155 for an 800 square foot apartment. So as you can see, the crisis is increasing in Isla Vista specifically. And then also in Santa Barbara, it is the 5th most expensive city in the state of California. So this crisis does not just pertain to students, but also the entire city and county of Santa Barbara. Could you go to the next slide, Riley? Okay. So many of you have probably heard of Munger Hall, and the Ocean Road project. So basically this project was promised and funded by Charles Munger, and it wasted a ton of money and years of work to plan this almost uninhabitable hall that was going to be built to try to stop the housing crisis, but it would actually be extremely unethical and cram students into unfit living spaces without windows. So as of now, Munger Hall has been canceled, which is a good step in the housing crisis. However, the school was not transparent on this issue and failed to notify students and faculty about this. So the lack of transparency from the university was really disappointing. And as students, we would like more transparency, and we would like to know about the projects concerning our housing and our rights to living at our school, basically. So we have a lot more on the website regarding the current state of the crisis, but since we are a little short on time, I would like to just emphasize that specifically with the UC system, the enrollment is increasing a lot, but the housing is not. So more and more students are being admitted and being promised housing on campus, which is not being followed through by the university. So also the privatization of housing is, many people are seeing this as an investment opportunity and a way to make money when it actually just results in the suffering of students and the community.
Franny, could I just add one comment real quick here?
Yeah, of course.
Just jump in and share with you all that as our not just UCSB, but the community around UCSB is affected by what we see as this housing crisis. And so, Riley, can you go to the next slide on financialization? With that, I think we were just on. Sorry, this is the right slide. Okay.
Okay.
So, sorry, the one with the that talks about financialization, section 3.
I think it's the next, yeah.
Okay, so what happened is that the UC system itself, its investment arm has turned to housing as an investment opportunity and is redirecting UC UC investments over $4 billion to be precise in acquiring real estate. And this was one of the UC investment companies is that this funds have been given to is Blackstone. It's this is a company with a very complicated and controversial background. And so you can see how in not addressing housing, the university is benefiting from the crisis, or not UCSB, but the UC system is benefiting from this crisis by not having affordable housing. And so it's concerning that we're not seeing affordable housing being prioritized at the highest levels. Okay, so sorry, back to you, Franny.
Yeah, just one more thing on how it affects the community. A lot of families in Goleta specifically are affected by this. They are being pushed out of their homes because the school is trying to create housing for students, but this housing that they are creating is unaffordable, and often students are able to afford some of this housing because of the demographics of UCSB. So this can push families out of Isla Vista, where they've lived for years. There's a lot of renovictions have been happening at apartments like the Sweeps, which I think we're going to talk about in our next housing forum. And we haven't done a ton of research on the website yet, but we do know that the renovictions that have occurred have pushed a bunch of students and families out of their apartments with little to no notice. And this is definitely an issue we would like to talk more about. But yeah, that's just one way that it's affecting the community as well and spreading outside of Isla Vista and into Goleta. And then I think that's.
And then another section that we talk about on the website is alternative options for housing development and policy that the UCSB campus community could consider. This includes rent stabilization, which I'm sure a lot of us or all of us are familiar with. But we also look a little bit at student housing cooperatives because they can pose a feasible alternative to privately owned housing because their members collectively own and manage the property. But we also recognize that none of the alternative options here offer necessarily a fix-all or a comprehensive solution to the housing crisis. They're definitely not without critique, but we look at them as potential examples of what housing can and does look like outside of a private partnership. And we also know that other UC campuses have had success building new student housing that isn't reliant on this private investment and funding, and we want to know why UCSB is not exploring this avenue. We also have had other potential student housing plans that are not reliant on the whims of a billionaire. So pre-Munger Hall, we had a development called Mesa Verde, which was going to be a much smaller and more, as Franny said, ethical design. But our key takeaway here is that Munger Hall was never the only option for student housing. And then I'll briefly, Franny, if you want to talk about the CCREI really quick too.
Yeah, so the CCREI is the Central Coast Regional Equity Initiative, and Basically, this initiative stresses that housing is the #1 driver of inequality on the Central Coast. And it also talks about how this is a major problem for UCSB graduate students. So as an undergraduate, I think it's super important to also see how this is affecting other community members and other students. So graduate students are basically required to live in the area in order to complete their studies, but they're only offered 1 year of housing. So this is another very large problem for affordable housing for graduate students because they are often required to work additional jobs in order to afford the high cost of housing in the area. They often have to live a little bit farther away from school and commute. And often their schedules don't allow this because they are TAs, they are doing research. And yeah, essentially this is just another this demonstrates another issue with the privatization of higher education and shows how we need to allocate public university resources to provide affordable housing when the students are required to study, live, and work in the area. So I think I don't know if we have enough time to go over all of the CCREI.
I can
I
just
think,
jump into key
Yeah.
takeaways from the guide if that
yeah,
yeah,
sounds
so
good.
time permitting. But so basically the main goal of this project, the People's Guide, was to create this new narrative about student housing that insists on accountability and transparency from our university so that we can avoid pitfalls of Munger Hall and also to continue to foster trust and confidence in housing here. We wanted to emphasize that we can reasonably expect more affordable housing to be constructed, and this should be done in a timely and well communicated manner so that we can reestablish our trust and our relationship with our campus. And yeah, we also have last quarter we hosted a forum as our official launch for this project. It was a student-led panel with other campus organizations, and we focused mainly on campus housing and holding UCSB accountable, but we are actually hosting another forum this quarter on May 14th, and we're going to be focusing specifically on Isla Vista and renters issues because I think that's a pretty natural flow of the conversation, and we want to be able to kind of dig into some new rental data that we've been exploring. So if you're interested in that, feel free to follow our social media for updates, or if you want, you could even drop your email address in the chat and we would be sure to send you an email or add you to our newsletter about that event. I don't know if Keisha, you have anything to add about the forum before we turn it over to if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I'll just add that our renters crisis forum is really, we're trying to look at what are some immediate things that we can do now to address this housing issues, that and the way it affects renters. So we're going to have a range of compelling panelists, which include IVC, Isla Vista Services District. We're going to have Santa Barbara Tenants Union. We're going to be having some campus organizations that we're also going to be attending. And we're also going to be talking about some of the resources that are, or projects in the works that are going to give renters maybe some, more of a voice, some more, some way to contribute to like landlord control and oversight. So this is something that is open to everyone. It's not just for our campus. And if you would like to receive updates, I can absolutely, thank you. I'm going to absolutely include those emails in when we have our next announcement go out. So, but thank you. I really want to turn the time over if there's any questions. This was a really dense project that we really covered. We covered quite briefly. So we want to hear from you. Okay. Yes. Mayor Prode. Okay.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say I applaud all your efforts. Thank you for what you're doing. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful that students have to not have accommodations, that they're living in their vehicles. I just tell, I'm glad that you're doing this and looking into it deeper. And, the city has struggled with rental units in Goleta as well. And also the fact that rent is so high because there's no vacancy and they can do that. So rentals are supposed to be affordable by design. They are not affordable. And so tell UCSB to build the houses that they said they would build, and to take into consideration faculty and staff. They need housing as well for all those extra students they're piling on. So obviously I'm not very pleased with what's going on in the university, but that's all. I'll stop there before I get myself in trouble. But thank you so much for what you're doing.
And noted, so thank you. Yes, Randy?
Hi, I second everything the mayor said. Obviously, it's a big issue and it's going to continue to be for probably 30 or 40 years. Was there any communication with the powers that be, with county housing considerations, with your group or the university when they decided to drop 6,000 more units right in the middle of Goleta? Well, that's the question. Has there been any communication at all with
We're
those?
not as, this is an area that we're learning about more with Goleta. Like, this is a bigger piece for us to engage with, because we focus primarily on what was happening within the campus. We do know that the campus had promised the county of Santa Barbara that it was going to be providing 5,000 additional beds through the long range development plan, and that commitment is not going to be met. That was supposed to be done by 2025. And because are you familiar with Munger Hall?
The gorilla.
The detour to abandon Mesa Road and try to implement Munger Hall, and Munger Hall was never going to pass any kind of environmental review. There were, it was a behavioral experiment, and it was a completely completely hijacked by private interests. It's been all this time that's been wasted. So we're really interested in understanding the Goleta component better, and how this also can be part of the solution to addressing, because student housing isn't just about here on campus, it's about the wider community that UCSB resides in. So I don't think I answered your question, but I appreciate you like elevating it to, as this is something that we need to understand better.
And the Blackstone seems to be like I think they're have a global real estate platform, like $580 billion all over the world. And I guess if you think of California as being one of the top 10 national budgets, that's understandable, but it still would be great if there could be something more local where there might be more responsiveness. And anyway, good luck. I'm glad you're doing great work.
Paying attention. Okay. Any other questions?
I just had a quick comment. Could you go back to that slide that showed the average income in our community versus average living wage versus cost of living?
Yes.
I think just the point of it, well, I was going to ask where you got that data from, but I think just noting again for everybody here, I don't think it's anything new that since we know homelessness is such a housing issue, this is where this kind of presentation is so relevant to what we're doing, because the more we have or the less we have affordable housing in our community, the more we are going to see homelessness. It's just kind of the way of things right now. But also I think it helps us connect the dots that we are all a part of this issue. I think, those of us who are renters are all facing this issue. So I think it's the one thread that ties us together with people who are experiencing homelessness as well. So.
Can I ask another question? Is there any number about how many students are living in their cars, or that might be classified as?
So we're actually we're partnering with the external office of the vice president for through UCSB. They have an ongoing rental data project that we're starting to work with them on, because we don't really have that data. The university doesn't really have it, and I think we would all argue a big chunk of the issue is that they genuinely don't really know how to quantify what's going on in Isla Vista. If you talk to any Ivy residents, I mean, myself included, I definitely know people who are living in converted vans or garages or things like that. And so a lot of our focus for at least this quarter has been trying to get that data because it really doesn't exist, at least not in a continuous sense. Like we have little pockets of data that have been collected over the years, but we really don't have a full picture of IV.
Well, I want to thank Riley and Keisha and Franny. Really, really appreciate your time. Thanks also for compressing all of that into such a short presentation. Please do send us the information about the upcoming forum so we can share that out for anyone who wants more. But thank you all.
I will add that the data that was shared on that slide for income, part of it comes from a report that was released by CAUSE this past year about housing, but then the specific data on student wages comes from UCSB's main website. So they do publish that, what average wages are for students.
Thank you,
That's
Keisha.
great.
I was having a tough time finding that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening, and just on behalf of all the students who haven't had the chance to say anything, thank you for listening to our renters' issues and crisis.
All right, so with that, we're going to go to our updates from our different homeless outreach providers, and then we'll turn it over to community members for questions and concerns. So let's see, we'll start with our Good Samaritan team. I see Fernando on the call.
Hi, Landon. So last week, we did do a sweep of Maria Ignacio Creek, Mission Creek, Creekside, Fairview Airport, and Goleta Beach with Volcrum. So it's been updated with photos. We also made 2 shelter referrals to Hedges. A lot of time was spent tracking our clients. Also, we made a referral to Be Well. And we also made several referrals to La Posada per county request. And we continue to work with our existing clients on getting them document ready. Thank you.
Thanks, Fernando. Let's go to our CityNet team.
Hi, good morning. This is Ellen with CityNet. Thank you for that presentation. That was really interesting to see. In terms of outreach, last week we were mostly out by like the tracks by San Jose, and mostly Old Town Goleta, trying to connect with folks. We've been working a lot on just getting people prepared for La Posada and Buena Tierra move-ins. And at Showers of Blessing, I did meet quite a few new people as well, or was able to reconnect with some folks. Definitely continuing to see a trend of people reaching out, asking kind of how they get into Buena Tierra. Which disappointing to have to tell them that it's definitely not going to happen immediately, but it is making new connections. So I've been able to enroll some of those folks. So that's been good.
Thank you, Ellen. And then can we go to our YMCA Youth and Family Services team doing youth outreach?
Hi, good afternoon. So last week we concentrated our efforts over by Estero Park, Camino Mallorca area. We did venture out to Sábado Tarde, the Trigo area, and then ventured out to Goleta and just focused on building community relationships and different businesses. I mean, that's about it.
Thanks, Brittany. I don't believe I see anyone from Safe Parking on the call today, but please chime in if I'm missing anyone. Let's go to George with the City of Goleta.
Great, thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm George Thompson. I'm the Parks and Open Space Manager for the city. In terms of this group, my main responsibilities as relates to encampments is coordinating on the initial detection. If we have a new encampment that arises, we meet every Monday morning and convey that information to our outreach team. And then on the back end, when we have a case where either an individual resident is moved to housing or they vacate a site, our team comes in and cleans up the site. And we do that in a very controlled way. We sort through all of the materials, take items of value, bag them, tag them, and store them for 90 days, and then post at the site both before our cleanup. So we do a 72-hour pre-cleanup notice, as well as a post-cleanup notice that indicates where that individual can retrieve their items. So to that end, our outreach team, just want to congratulate you all. I saw in our data management system that we did have some great successes this week. In particular, at least one individual that was residing in one of our parks in Old Town moved to housing. So thank you so much. It's nice to hear that good news. Not a lot of new stuff to report this week, but there are a couple items that I want to make the wider community aware of. A lot of our encampments do occur on Caltrans and Union Pacific Railroad property, and I know we have a Union Pacific representative on the call today. The city does not go onto those properties and clean up abandoned trash or actively remove those encampments. Our outreach teams do in some cases, a lot of cases go onto those properties. But in terms of cleaning up all the stuff that's left behind, we leave it to those agencies that own and manage those properties to be responsible for those lands. And so specifically for Union Pacific, and I think this is a wider resource that is available to the community. Union Pacific does have a really robust online reporting system. And so just know that the city is reporting these items to the railroad as we find them, particularly for items that are dumped illegally or where we have active encampments. And that is a tool that is available to the wider community as well. It's kind of like the Union Pacific version of the city's City Assist online system. And if you're not aware of that system, you can go to our website and report incidents that need attention. And that'll get routed, documented in our internal system and routed to the right person. So that's the approach that we take for Caltrans and Union Pacific. Caltrans has a similar system. On city properties, this past week, we had a couple events. We did a beautified Goleta cleanup, not focused on encampments, but just wider trash and items that have either washed down through our creek systems or up on the beach. And I was fortunate to lead the Elwood Beach cleanup. We did find a couple abandoned encampments fairly well hidden along the beach, and based on the degradation of the items there, they had been there for several months. And so this is just a small garbage bag of items, but in total, we removed about 500 pounds of trash from Elwood Beach, and you'll be seeing some press coming out about the wider effort. Again, not focused on encampments, but just part of cleaning up and stewarding our public open spaces. Okay, separately, and this is not in my wheelhouse, but I'm obviously interested and engaged on the wider issue of homelessness. If you're not aware, our Supreme Court is having hearings today on the Grants Pass case. So I'm sure many of you are nodding your heads now and are aware of this, but if you're not, tune in to the news, because this is really a dynamic, critical point in our country. And the highest court in the nation is looking at one case in particular that trickles down to what we talk about and act on a daily basis. So there's potentially a decision coming from the Supreme Court in June. Mary, let me just pull up your question. I'm sorry, if it's something that we can talk about directly, I will follow up
it was
with you.
it was about the beach cleanup. Yeah, we can follow up with that. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, George. Seeing the time, I want to make sure we have a little bit of time at least for any concerns or questions from the community. So let's go ahead and open it up. Anything that anyone wants to raise while we're all together?
One thing I just want to say, I don't think we mentioned, is the county just received very good news from the governor. The county has applied, the governor set aside certain funding for encampment relief, which has had a lot of impact on Goleta. Many of you are working in what we call our SURF, California Encampment Relief Fund programs. And we just received notice that the county got a $8 million additional grant for SURF 3, which is going to focus on people living in vehicles. So this will impact a lot of what we've been talking about here. You know, it will include probably reaching out to students in vehicles and a lot of other people in vehicles. It's going to be a big thing, and we'll keep you posted as to how that develops and rolls out, pun intended, over the next few weeks and months.
Thanks, Chuck. Not seeing any other questions or hands from the community.
Hey, Landon, I'll just drop
Go ahead, George.
the press release that went out. I saw it in the Independent over the weekend. So if you want to learn more about that award and the specific focus, you can check out that link.
Thanks, George. Kemba.
Hi, just really quick, I wanted to know if somebody could share information about how the TAY population would apply for the housing at all. Is there a direct contact for someone?
Danielle, can you answer that, or Shannon?
I'll answer it. So I'm Shannon Bruner. I'm the Transitional Age Youth Director for Channel Islands YMCA Youth and Family Services. Are you referring to Buena Tierra or?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
So it goes through the coordinated entry system, but if they're not in the coordinated entry system, Channel Islands YMCA actually operates 2 drop-in centers / navigation center / access points, one of which is in Isla Vista, and that is at the St. George's Youth Center on Thursdays and Fridays from 9 to 1. And then we are in Santa Barbara at 701 East Haley, 9 to 1, Monday through Saturday. So I encourage, if you know anyone that is in need of housing or any other supports between the ages of 18 24, you refer them to us so that we can get them started. And my contact information is already in the chat.
Thank you.
And we have a lot of other services available other than referring people to Buena Tierra too.
Since we have a few minutes left, Deputy Warden, do you have any updates you want to share?
I don't have any particular updates, but my job's kind of similar to George's in that a lot of times I help coordinate with outreach and everything, because a lot of property owners will contact law enforcement first. And so I just liaise with the property owners and outreach and try to get people into housing versus just having them trespass and kicking the can down the road. So that's kind of a big job I do, and it's kind of a daily task for me. But no big updates, other than the fact that I know that La Posada will be opening hopefully on the 29th. They're about a week behind. I do know that because I'll be helping with that on the 29th. So I know that.
Thank you. That's good to know.
Today.
Sorry, Judy, did you say something?
Yes, in Chuck's report, he said that 29 were sheltered of the 150. Is that at the Hedges house?
So quite a few are at Hedges. Yes, Judy. Currently, the official Goleta paid for shelter beds are there. We have 2 beds at Path, and we have 4 beds at Hedges House of Hope. But that doesn't mean that someone from Goleta doesn't necessarily end up at one of those shelters. So that it's a combination of Path and Hedges.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming today. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, this is Lupe Valdez, and I apologize. I've been listening, but I wanted to make sure the county of Santa Barbara got kudos, because the last cleanup that was done, which was on debris, not active homeless encampments, but in and around Goleta, was actually done by the county. And we provided flag protection for them to be able to do that work, because again, they can't be on railroad property without adequate protection. So that last round was done by the county as opposed to UP. So I wanted to make sure to give credit to the county where credit is due, that it was not us, but we worked in cooperation with the county, but they did the cleanup on abandoned encampments. So that's all I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Thank you, Lupe. Appreciate that. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming for a full meeting today. We'll see you for our next meeting on May 27th at noon. Have a great week. Fernando, if you want to stick around.